You're listening to the Word Slinger Podcast, episode 14, Writing, Marketing, and Self-Publishing with Nick Thacker. This episode of the Word Slinger Podcast is brought to you by The Lucid, new serialized fiction from me and author Nick Thacker, available right now on Amazon.com.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Hey everybody, it is Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger, and as a word slinger, I may have a bit of a reputation, which is to kind of be a loner, to go it my own, right? So, but that's not always the case. Sometimes this word slinger has a partner, and one of those partners is my good friend Nick Thacker. And you may know Nick Thacker. He runs the Self-Publishing Answers podcast, which a few months ago I got invited to partake in. So Nick and I did it again. I almost called him Vic again. I don't know why I do that. I do that at the head of the show. So his name is Nick Thacker with an N. But we do the Self-Publishing Answers podcast together. And self-publishing is a passion we both share. It's something that it launched careers for both of us. So we've been very excited to kind of dig in and discover some things and share those things with listeners like you. If you happen to be an author or you want to be an author, you should go check that out, Self-Publishing Answers podcast, and you can find that on writehacked.com, and that's there are other resources on that site as well. So you can also ask questions, and you can ask questions on this show if you go to Wordslinger. I'm still working on wordslingerpodcast.com. Don't ask me why. It's that time of year. The Thanksgiving, Christmas season has soaked up my brain. But if you go to kevintomlinson.com/podcast, you can leave a voicemail or an email for this show. And there's all kinds of tools there for that. But I'd love to hear from you if you've got questions that you'd like me to answer, or you have a question for one of my former guests, or a future guest. I've got guests like Joanna Penn coming up, speaking of self-publishing. So this is not a self-publishing podcast, though. So it's just sort of a coincidence that I have all these self-publishing guests. This is a podcast about story, and this time around, we're going to talk to Nick a little about his story. He's got a pretty interesting one. He's a good guy. I met him months and months ago, maybe September, I think, and I had actually paid Nick for some author coaching, because my own author business, there are aspects of it that I'm still trying to figure out. There's the business side of it that I'm trying to boost, the marketing side of it, and I value the advice of people who've been studying this and doing this. So I did pay Nick for a consultation, and then out of that a sort of partnership was born, and we've been throwing ideas back and forth ever since. We collaborated on a piece of serialized fiction called The Lucid, which the first episode of that is now available on Amazon. So you can go check that out. Go to Amazon.com. Just search for Tomlinson and Lucid, or Thacker and Lucid, and you'll find that right away. Sorry about all the swallowing, by the way. This is another one of those mornings. But beyond that, though, we're going to be working on the next episode of that, and we're going to be releasing that in the head of the new year. But beyond that, Nick and I have quite a nice collaboration going. It's been great working with him. It's kind of liberating, actually. It's reaffirming, because I've now figured out ways to boost my output as far as creating my fiction. Knocking books out left and right, but it's good to have someone that I can bounce ideas off of and collaborate with on the marketing and business development, and it's just been an eye-opening experience, and I've really enjoyed it. So on that note, let's sneak in and listen in on like we're gonna like we're peeking out of a closet. I'm in a closet. You may also be in a closet, but let's take a listen and see what Nick has to say about the world of writing, marketing, and self-publishing your work. Hey everyone, this is Kevin, and I'm here with Nick Thacker, who is an author, and I always refer to him as a sort of marketing guru slash genius, but that's mostly when I need something from him. So, how are you doing, Nick? Hey, how are you? I almost called you Vic, by the way.
I'll go with Vic today. I'll be Vic. I'm doing well, man. I'm doing really good. I first of all have internet. I know you and I've been on podcasts before together, and internet is spotty at best on my end.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that there's not like a 10-second delay between when you ask me a question and when you hear the response.
Yeah, thanks for stepping up for once.
So I'm good, man. I'm doing really well. I'm crazy busy with writing stuff right now, as you probably know.
Yeah.
But man, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm perfect, and I'm glad to hear you're on writing stuff because some of that stuff is tied to me. So
yes, some of that I'm accountable to you for.
So just so everyone knows, so Nick and I actually do another podcast together, which is the Self-Publishing Answers podcast, which just got a better intro from me today than it's ever gotten from me on any of the shows. But and we also co-write. We're co-writing The Lucid, which is a serialized story, and the first episode of that is going to go live toward the end of November. And it's already available for pre-order. So, and we just did a little bit more on that today, sort of a bonus. You want to talk about that at all, or should we? Let's focus on you, Nick.
Yeah, it's fine, man. It's whatever you want to do is your podcast. About the Lucid. I mean, like you said, it's serialized fiction. It's sort of, and initially when I came to you with it, I had written about 5,000 words, and in my mind, and I don't think we veered too far from this, but in my mind, it was sort of this young adult dystopian stuff that is so popular right now, except for normal adults. And the only reason I said normal adults is because I don't want to say adult. It's not adult fiction. It's not like it's
there's it's no not, brown chicken, brown cow in this.
It's not erotica. Yeah, it's not erotica. It's for adults that are not engaging in erotic activity. I don't know how to. You know what I'm trying to say?
Not that we see on screen.
Yes, but it's in the same vein as some of that stuff, and so it's if you're into that, I mean, it's kind of a survivalism meets dystopia meets post-apocalyptic right before it's post-apocalyptic, so apocalyptic
it's
maybe.
Post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it though, man. It's
pre-post-apocalyptic.
It's pre-post-apocalyptic.
So far, yeah, but
it's pre-contemporary post-apocalyptic.
We'll shift from that very quickly, I think. But
yeah, I think so.
So, all right. So this podcast, I mean, I have authors on the show, and I definitely want to talk about our work and your work, and you've got some exciting stuff going on. But the show itself focuses on story, and I like to try to dig nuggets out of how story influences different parts of your life besides just the fiction. So, how do you see story playing a role, say, in marketing or you're doing a lot of business stuff. WriteHack.com is one of your websites, along with NickThacker.com. And WriteHack is geared towards helping other writers. How do you see story playing a role in building that business?
Well, I will answer that question with a story, Kevin,
okay.
if that's appropriate.
I love it. I'm toasting marshmallows right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, though, because it impacts it a lot. It's I think of it as one and the same if it's done well. And a good example of this is when I was beginning to set up an autoresponder series. So this is when you sign up on my website. At this point, I've turned it off right now. But in the past, I've had this 20-week sort of email chain going out every few days or every week, or depending on the time frame. So you sign up and you get this email from me, and then a day or two later, you get another one, and you get another one, and you get another one. I've tested these before with my website, and I had not gotten a whole lot of good response for it. And so I was reading, marketing book A or B or whatever it was. I read a lot of these types of books, and I had read this plenty of times before. This certainly wasn't new information, but this author said, marketing is a story. You need to tell a story. And so I said, well, shoot, I'm going to hold you to that, author. And I tried it. And so I rewrote my autoresponder series to include the story of how I became a writer. And how I became an author, and sort of some of the struggle within that. And that's all it was. It wasn't trying to promote anything until probably week 5 when I had a course that actually was up on Udemy. I didn't create it, but this guy created it, and it had a lot of the same content in there that I used when I first started writing, and it really helped me. And so I linked to this course as an affiliate, and I mentioned that in the emails and all that. But by this time, people were engaged in this story, and I made like $1,000 in like the first week doing it. And again, as an affiliate, so I wasn't even getting paid because I created the course. It was just pennies on the side. Somebody else was getting all the money. So I set up this guy really well because apparently he made a bunch of money. But the point isn't how much money I made on it. The point is people were engaged in that because I told a story. And it totally worked. And so as a marketer on that side, it absolutely was a success for me because I made the money. But what I learned is, as a business owner, as a writer, the story part is absolutely crucial to what we do. And so it's not about trying to market something and then just making up a story about it. It's more about telling the story about who you are and why whatever it is you're promoting is important to you.
Yeah,
and I think that's a harder thing to do, but that maybe helps explain it a little bit.
Yeah, it's much more intentional than just trying to pull the pieces together after the fact. I mean, in some ways you can still go back and look and define your story, but what you're talking about is much more intentional. Like decide what story you actually want to tell and build the business around that story, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's a much better way to put it. I was just thinking. I mean, if I was trying to sell, a car on my website that I didn't drive. Or if I was in the car business, right, I would try to make up a story about a car, and it would just be a lot more difficult for me to do that, and it probably wouldn't work as well. And people have a pretty low tolerance for BS, and I think they can see through a lot of things that we do. And so that's really the lesson for me is was, tell your story and then create products and books and things that fit within that story because they're part of your story, not the other way around. Hey, I want to make this thing, and I'll just come up with some story around it to market it later.
So do you think there's a market for every story?
I don't know. That's a good question. I want to say yes, but I don't really know. I think there's a difference between knowing that there's a market and actually finding the market. I think we can sit online and try to sell a story to someone and never sell a copy, but it may not be because there's not a market for it. It may just be that we don't know where that market is, or how they like to be reached.
Yeah, and that's the trick, finding that market, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, that's what you and I are trying to do with everything we've got. So,
which it always sounds so easy. Whenever I read these, but you and I read a lot of the same books, so it's always
right.
find a market, define a need for that market, fill that need, and it's a very A to C, sort of compressed timeline thing, and it just never seems to work out that way.
It is, man, and it's also always about the success stories. I was just thinking it'd be interesting to read a book full of case studies of people who failed. I don't think there's really, and that would just how it ends. It's not like it would ever just turn and say, okay, now here's some success stories. I think it would be really depressing, but kind of funny to see all the times people have failed at something.
Okay, so I should totally stop the recording now so that we can keep that idea from being stolen by anybody else, and we just write that book.
I think we should write that book. Yeah, I mean, all jokes aside though, Kevin, like that how many people have succeeded without failing first?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that exists in some way, in some capacity. Every single person has failed.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're failures. That just means they failed. And so that's really the name of the game for us is we just keep doing stuff and either failing at it or finding minor success and building off of that until we get to that point where we can say whatever we define as success, we've gotten there.
And what do you think is the point at which you have to decide whether you're succeeding or failing, and succeeding or failing, and then changing the plan? I mean, how do you at what point do you just make that determination?
That's a great question. I've struggled with that. I used to work for a marketing company, and I hated it. And it was a bad company. I'm not going to say the name out of respect for some of the people that I worked with, but it was a bad experience for me. It was a good experience overall, but it was hell going through it.
Yeah.
And so I finally had to get to the point. I prayed. I'm Christian. I prayed about it, talked to my wife about it, and finally we decided together that I was better off just quitting and seeing what God had in store for me as as a self-employed writer guy. Mm-hmm. I think to answer the question better than I ever could, anyone who's struggling with that should read the book The Dip by Seth Godin.
Oh, yeah.
If you probably have heard of Seth, if you're listening to this podcast, I mean, he's well known. He's a marketer, but he's not a sleazy, slimy marketer. He's actually an extremely intelligent guy, genius level probably, most people would say. And he's written a little tiny book called The Dip. It's a little blue and white book, hardcover. You can get it at any bookstore, and it's a short read, but it goes through that. It says here's sort of a chart that shows what a dip looks like. So you're feeling a slump, and success usually comes not before that slump, but after it. So you have to push through that dip. However, there is also a chapter or two in that book that talks about when a dip isn't a dip, but sort of like the downward spiral of that sort of feeling and frustration, and probably is better off to quit. So
Yeah. Yeah. I've gone through a few dips.
oh yeah, everyone's gone through a dip, and we're going to go through more. You and I will probably fight at some point, and
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll go our separate ways, and then realize that we're long lost without each other, and we'll come running into each other's arms as music plays. And I've planned this all out, man. I've thought about it plenty of times.
Wow. Suddenly I'm a hetero life mate.
Welcome.
So in the, okay, so we've talked a little about the business but when you and I, we have a story. I mean, I came to you for coaching actually,
Mm-hmm.
and because I was in a dip actually. I was trying to figure out like why am I not making a forward progress, and the main answer is I haven't done all the work yet. So we're kind of building some things together now. But you and I had a great conversation, and when I approached you about the two of us maybe collaborating on something, you were all on board. So collaboration is, we've talked about this on our show, and we're doing some posts I think about this hopefully soon. But how has collaboration shaped the story of the work for you?
So you mean story is not as far as what the Lucid is about, but the story
Of
of
like how you work and how you think, like I
yeah.
know there's been some changes for me, definitely.
Yeah, and we talked about those a little bit, and I think we're probably going to do a podcast episode about that sometime this week.
Yeah.
On the
You,
self-publishing
you don't
answers
want to
one,
steal
right?
thunder. We don't have to
No,
steal
no,
the
no, no,
thunder.
no, not at all. I'm totally. I think this will be a rough draft for me then, and
There you
then
go.
no, I'm just kidding. Because it is a great question. It's a big question. Really is how has it changed the story for how we work? And my answer is it's changed everything.
God.
I am now held accountable by somebody who is not my wife, and somebody who's not an external peer. Somebody looking over my shoulder or a friend. You're in it with me. You're in the trenches, man. We're doing
Yeah.
this together, and so. If there's anybody I should trust in this whole thing, it's you, and I do, by the way. But it's crucial for me to realize and recognize that as much as I want to work on other things, I've got a commitment to you that I'm going to finish and hold up my end of whatever it is we're working on.
Yeah.
And it's not just the Lucid. There's other stuff that we're talking about, nonfiction wise in 2015. And so for me, the story has changed because it's gotten more real. It's basically said, hey, I am so committed into this writing game that I'm no longer going to do it by myself, which gives me the easy excuse to say, I'm just going to stay in bed today and hang out and play some video games or whatever because it's just me. But now I'm taking it so seriously that I have enlisted your help, and we're in this together. And so we have to be accountable to one another. I take that extremely seriously.
Yeah, it's interesting how that has shaped everything because I was like that as well. And knowing you now, I've known you for several months now. I would never in a million years apply the terms lazy or or lack of work ethic to you because you're a hard worker, right? And that seems like it's such an integral part of you. So it's bizarre to me to think that there would ever be a day that you wake up and say, "Yeah, I'm just going to play video games."
Well, that's interesting you say. Just to clarify, I always tell people that I'm the laziest person I know. In truth, I produce more work than most people that I know.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. People go to work and then they come home and they hang out with their kids. And so I don't have any kids yet, and so I go home and I hang out with my wife a little bit, cook dinner, and then I've got free time. And so I fill that free time with things outside of work. And I write books and I blog and I do all these things that I think are fun.
Yeah.
So for me, if I'm in the zone, if I'm in the groove, they don't often seem like work. But really what I mean when I say that about myself is that while I do work hard and I work a lot, I don't always work as smart as I need to be working. So I'll pick something to work on that probably isn't, at any given time, the most important thing that I need to do. Case in point, I've got this productivity planner that I'm trying to produce. I've sent an email out to everyone letting them know that they're in print, and they are, and they're being printed and all that. And I needed to do one more final thing to it so I could get it ready for printing actually today as we're recording this, because I have to ship it out today as well. So Anyway, I decided last night that I was going to work on that little piece, even though I knew that I had it scheduled for the next day, because I really didn't want to work on what I had to work on, which was this project that I've been tasked with by Amazon Publishing.
Yeah.
That's also due in a week,
Yeah.
and so I have, that's my number one priority, period. I know it. Everyone around me knows it. Everyone in my small group at church knows it. You know it.
Yeah.
And so, but I chose last night to work on something that wasn't the smartest thing I could work on. And that's a long way of saying, that's why I say I'm the laziest person I know. Once I get to the point where I can channel that energy into working on only the smartest thing at that time that I need to be working on, then I'll probably be the best, most efficient worker in the entire world. But I'm not there yet. I'm not even close to it.
Yeah. Oh, I've said this before, but I have this notion that only a writer could consider himself lazy while he's working on something else.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, no, I understand what you mean. It's like work as procrastination, because there's definitely work that's more fun for
Absolutely.
for for me or for anybody than the other work. There's work I dread. What's funny is you suddenly do that other work and you're like, oh, why did I wait on this? This is awesome. I wish I'd had more time with it. I don't know if you feel like that or not.
Of course I do. Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm right there with you.
So, do you want to talk about? Are you able to talk about your Amazon project at all, or is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the only reason, if whoever's listening to this, listen to the Self Publishing Answers podcast episode where I kind of mentioned it and it sounded a little secretive. If you didn't listen to that, then never mind.
You should go listen to that.
You should go listen to that. Shout out. The only reason I said it in that way was I hadn't received a contract from them yet, so I wanted to be sure that I had covered my bases and all that stuff. It's not a secret. I am being paid a bonus by Amazon Publishing, not KDP Select or anything like that, but actually the publishing house that Amazon runs, in order, or only if I finish a novel of 40,000 words by November 21st. And that's actually, it's all on me. So it's sort of a hybrid publishing model. I write the book, edit the book, get a cover designed for the book, finish it, and then upload it to their system, very similar to Kindle, KDP Select. And at that point, they will pay me a bonus instead of an advance before, they pay me a bonus after. And then the book goes live. They want to have it ready so they can promote it over Black Friday and Thanksgiving week and that kind of thing. So we'll see what they do with it. But the point is, it's a new kind of venture for me. I've never done that before. I've never even been close to traditional publishing. So this was a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. It's obviously very stressful at this point because I'm behind where I want to be. Mm-hmm. But it's going to get done. I'm going to do it. I'm very confident in my skills to be able to work last minute. Always have been. And so I'll finish it, and it'll go live, and we'll send links out everywhere, and you'll hear about it for a week. I'm sure. For a long time.
From all quarters.
Quarters.
I'll probably be pimping you quite a bit on this show. I may. I always do this lame because I don't have actual sponsors. I sponsor my own show with my own work, so I'll throw. Actually, the last time I recorded one was for Lucid. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Didn't hear that one. I have to go back and listen.
Yeah, it hasn't gone live yet. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah. You and I are weeks in the past from everybody listening right now, by the way. So,
right.
So
like time travelers.
What made you? Go ahead.
No. I just was going to say I realized that I talked about the business side of it. Most people listening to this who are probably readers are going to want to know what the book is about. So if you will indulge me.
Sure, I just thought it was a big secret or something.
No, not at all. Yeah, and then I made it sound like that, but it totally wasn't. I just didn't want to be. I didn't want to be caught with my pants down per se. If Amazon was listening to the podcast and was like, "Hey, you can't talk about it."
Yeah, because they are, right?
I assume they are.
Hi, Amazon.
Yeah, they're the seventh person listening. So the book is essentially it's fan fiction. It's fan fiction for a universe in Kindle Worlds. That if you haven't heard of Kindle Worlds, it's kindleworlds.amazon.com, I believe. And people upload fan fiction inside of another world that an author's created. So a great example of this is Hugh Howey's Wool series has been opened up to fan fiction, and you can go submit a story for that. And so they approached me and said, A.G. Riddle, the author of The Atlantis Gene, The Atlantis Plague, and The Atlantis World, has opened up his world, The Atlantis, or Origins Mystery is what it's called, to fan fiction. And so they said, we want to kind of seed that world with a few authors, and he's mentioned your name and two other authors who he liked their work and would like to start with you guys. So that was Amazon. They called and said, we'll pay you a bonus. You do it all, and here's what the deal is. And they sent a contract over. And so, yeah, I'm going to be releasing my first ever fan fiction. But I'm excited about the book. It's pretty exciting. It's basically a alien, Atlantean, Jurassic Park type thing. Very, very cool alien creatures in there for me. And something I've never done before. It's a creature feature. So that'll be hopefully good. But I'm enjoying it right now.
I mean, you gave me a small snippet of it when you first started writing it. Does that still apply to what you're writing?
It does, yeah.
So
That's kind of setting it up. They made this mistake of bringing. They're research scientists on this spaceship, this Atlantis spaceship, and they go to planets and they research and study these animals or these aliens, and then they bring some of them back onto the ship inside this thing called an arcology that A.G. Riddle created in one of his books. And my idea was, why don't they argue about? They're arguing about something that they did earlier, and we don't know what it is. And it turns out that they are arguing about whether or not they should bring Species 9 onto the ship. In Species 9, I don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but it's going to be really crazy and cool. And it turns out that they get locked inside this arcology with all of these animals, and they have to get out. So that's kind of the deal.
I like the Jurassic Park description. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's probably
Jurassic Park
it's
in
space.
space.
Jurassic Park in space, right?
Yeah. Everything's
Always wanted to write down
cooler.
some
It only becomes true sci-fi when you add in space to the end of it.
Yeah, right. Anything you want, and then add in space, and it becomes sci-fi. That's right.
Mummy porn in space. So you, what's it like writing in someone else's universe? How tough is that?
It is. It's very challenging. Honestly, it's challenging for different ways. Though I expected it to be challenging because I was trying to make sure that it tied in to his original universe. You know, like little story snippets here and there. And I bet a smarter and better author than I could do it really well. But I finally kind of threw in the towel with that plan and said, you know what, I'm going to take one character or two characters that he wrote, and I'm going to basically tell a story about some experience they had long before they were even in his books. Because it saved me from having to tie things in too closely to what is going on in the original universe. It saved me from having to really deeply study the world, that he built. Not that I didn't want to study it, but the books are long, and there's 3 of them, and I didn't have time to go through and write, charts and graphs and timelines and all that stuff. So I had to just basically say, I'm going to write a story that in all intents and purposes could be separate from his original universe. And the only ties they have in there are, alluded to in the original books about what these guys did before they were in those books, if that makes sense. And then there's other things like the physics and some of the technology that I've borrowed from his original stories to tie it in well. Yeah. So I think it's really turning out to be a project that I think would be a good story outside of the Atlantis universe. But because it's part of a universe that he created, I think it's going to be stronger because of it.
So it's a little outside of the type of work you've written in the past with your previous books. You want to talk about those a little and the sort of style of those?
Sure. Yeah, I'll briefly.
And I'm gonna try so hard to not refer to your book by its
the Golden Compass.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not the Golden Compass.
It's not. It's close. It's better
It is better.
It's called The Golden Crystal, and that was the first actually piece of fiction that I've ever written. I mean, reasonably. I probably wrote some stuff when I was a little kid, but I wasn't a writer before that. I had read so many books. Thrillers is what my overall genre would be called, that I read, and within that, probably action adventure, a little bit of sci-fi, but certainly not a main sci-fi line.
Right.
Books like Clive Cussler, James Rollins, Dan Brown. Those are the kind of stuff that I loved to read, and I'd read all those guys' books and every other author you can think of in that genre, and eventually decided, hey, well, I can probably do this. I mean, these guys are writing books, and I can probably do one as well. Turns out I was wrong. It was very, very challenging.
I don't agree with that.
To write a book that was any good, and I ended up falling on my face so many times. Got to the muddy middle of the Golden Crystal, the right in the center of it, about 50,000 words out of a 100,000 word novel, and I had no idea what I was doing. And so I took a step back and read everything I could find about the craft of structuring and plotting a novel. that made sense, and found some really cool stuff that helped me along. Dwight Swain's book Techniques of the Selling Writer is probably my all-time favorite writing book. It's a little formulaic, which is why a lot of if there are people who don't like it, it's because of that. But I loved it because I needed something. I needed some sort of structure.
Yeah.
And it was still open enough for me to develop characters a little bit within that and develop a plot within that. And so that got me through the first book, and I wrote the second one in the same vein. It's called The Depths, and it's about a research station underwater, 5 miles of ocean, and everyone tries to kill everybody else. So thrillers, it's sort of your I like action and adventure, so I like people shooting guns all the time, but I also like this idea, and this is where the sci-fi usually comes in with my other work. I like the idea that it's based somewhat on nonfiction or real life things. There's some technology that actually exists, or there's some exotic place that is mysterious for some reason.
Yeah.
And so I love that kind of stuff. I love the conspiracy theory type things as fiction, not as I'm not a conspiracy theorist per se, but I love bringing that stuff in there and then trying
would
to
say that.
file these threads. I would. I just have to clarify. Right? You're a conspiracy theorist. What do you think about this? Don't bombard me with conspiracy theories, everybody. I've heard them all, and they're all true. So I'll just go ahead and invalidate them now.
That's the conspiracy.
That's the conspiracy. Everything's true. Everything is. So that's basically what I try to do, man. I get different threads that are, for all intents and purposes, completely unrelated. A place over here with a technology over here and a person over here, and how are they all connected, and write a story, go.
Yep.
So that's what I love to do, and that's where I think I've gone with my 3 standalone thrillers. My last one, or my current one, the Enigma Strain, is coming out very soon, end of November as well. It's being edited and finalized right now, and it is about the world's largest supervolcano, the active largest supervolcano, which actually exists beneath the ground at Yellowstone National Park. And it's about a guy who is a park ranger there, and there's an explosion that releases some sort of viral thing into the air, which obviously kills people in a horrifying way. And then you find out that there's a bomb that's actually underneath there as well, and there's a threat that whoever put the bomb there is going to blow up Yellowstone, essentially unleashing this supervolcano, and it's going to kill the United States, guaranteed. So it's cool. I as always, it didn't come out exactly the way that I thought it would, but I think there's some new and interesting things in there that I liked. I liked it enough that I'm writing a second book with the same character, so it'll be sort of a series with him in it as well.
Yeah, he's kind of your Jack Reacher character.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it's not a series as far as like Harry Potter is, where there's a defined start and end point with the story.
Yeah.
But he's just your same character that's going to have a cast of secondary characters as well, and they'll kind of play in and out. James Rollins does this phenomenally well, in my opinion, with his Sigma Force novels. So I'm sort of borrowing that model from him.
So James Rollins is one of your influences. Clive Cussler. I'm never going to say that name right. In my entire life, I've never said that man's name properly. So who are some other big influences?
Well, yeah. So just to clarify too, I like the idea and the writing of Clive. Well, I like the idea of Clive Cussler's books, his concepts and his plots, and I really do like some of the books that he's written. I really don't like his characters at all.
Yeah.
I actually haven't gotten all the way through very many of his books. But I pick up just about every one of them and try again, because I feel like he could be my next favorite author, but he just needs to get rid of Dirk Pitt. sorry, Clive.
Which is just a blanket across the board. You just need to get rid of Dirk Pitt. That's all there is to it.
Definitely true. But I totally respect the man. That guy can pop out a book, just almost as fast as James Patterson and some of the other guys. So there's constantly a new Clive Cussler on the shelf at my grocery store, which is another level of success that I'd hope to reach one day. I mean, being in a
grocery store level of success.
It'd be awesome to me.
I joke about that, but I'm serious. I would love that. Like to walk into like a Walmart or something and see my book or a Kroger, and see my book among those. Yeah, that's
especially. I just want to check out and hand them the book, and then hand them my credit card with my name on it.
Flip the book over where your author photo appears, and just put your license on top of it.
Well, not mine, because mine doesn't look anything like me. I've heard my author picture in my books is awful. People say.
Is it hand drawn with?
It's a sketch. It's a stick figure. Yeah. This is
Is
me.
it James Patterson's photo? Is that what you're?
That guy's got to get author photo.
Yeah.
That guy.
Oh yeah.
But,
Well, that's what we should do. We should write a series of books by someone named Jim Patterson and just
Jimmy
ride
Pat.
ride that wave.
We could. Yeah, we definitely could.
Why not? Gold Rush.
You
Gold
know,
Rush.
he's really 30 different authors writing books. I'm sure it's probably what it is.
There are authors doing that. What do you
Oh,
think
I know.
of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you
Yeah,
think of that trend? Because I
well-
think actually Patterson is one of those now.
Is he? Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. I know Clancy did this a lot. I know Robert Ludlum did it a lot, or does it, or I think Robert Ludlum's dead, isn't he? Did he pass away?
I think this is not the first time you've asked me that question, and I still don't know the answer.
And if only there was some sort of...
I'm going to look it up right now. I'm like, this is like, before it comes up again, I'm looking this up. Yeah, died 2001.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought he did. So he's still
Rest
got...
in peace, Robert Ludlum.
Rest in peace, man. You asked me this question. He's actually one of my inspirations. I was more inspired by the movie, The Bourne Identity, than the book, just because I was young when it, I think it came out before I was born even. But, I didn't understand it as much when I was a kid and I read it.
Yeah.
But I watched the movie and I was like, man, this is awesome. I love the idea of this character. He can do anything and it's really cool. So he's an inspiration for me as well. But he's got this model, where people write books and they write within his world, sort of like what I'm doing with Atlantis, and they write in this Bourne something world, Bourne, and then pick another word, and it becomes a book title with Robert Ludlum's name on it. That's actually probably the
Bourne, give me your money.
it's the
Yeah.
quickest success I've actually ever heard of. So maybe we should do that instead. Bourne the Lucid.
The Bourne Redundancy. That's the title of my fan fiction.
Do that. The Bourne something in the water, aka
The Lucid. Why not?
maybe it'll work. We'll see.
Why not?
Here's what I think of it. I believe that it's a win-win-win. I think the publishing company is getting the win of having a book that people know and respect because of Ludlum's name, but also because of the Bourne brand. I believe Robert Ludlum's estate, rest in peace, Robert, wins because they get new material and new content, and that's keeping his line fresh. It's keeping it, keeping it going. There's obviously some questions of art, and if they're not honoring the art, and none of those books are going to be as good as other books. And so there's always that question of keeping the quality high, and I would just hope that the publishing company is able to maintain that. I believe it has with the ones that I've read. And then it's a win for the author who's writing in that world because, again, they get to borrow the trust and credibility of both Ludlum and his publisher. I'm not sure who it is, but whatever that publisher is Big Six, and they've got tons of money to put behind it and all that. So, or Big Five now, I guess, isn't it?
Isn't it 4?
But,
I don't know.
Is it even? Yeah, it might be 4. That's right.
Yeah.
It was another merger.
Yeah.
I'm not against it at all. I think it's a great solution, a great system. For me, the caveat is I wouldn't want to be bound by that. I wouldn't want a publishing company to say, hey, we want you to write in Ludlum's world, but you can't write outside of that. The only books you can ever produce are in Ludlum's world. That would be a no-go for me.
Yeah. Robert Ludlum's going to suddenly start writing some really weird stuff.
That's true. Yeah, I would basically just get myself fired if.
Yeah. But in essence, that's kind of what you're doing for A.G. Riddle, right?
I was just going to say I can't be against that model, at least not until after this book is done.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what I'm doing for A.G. Riddle. The difference is, of course, they're not going to. I don't think they're going to put his name on the cover, like as if. So that's the thing. I guess that's the other questionable part about Ludlum's universe and everything he's done there. Is the publishing company, and I'm pretty sure it's their fault, not his or the other author, but they make it look an awful lot like Ludlum wrote that book.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh, Robert Ludlum's Bourne Identity or Bourne whatever it is, written by this small little author in the bottom.
Written by Joe.
Joe. Yeah. So I would love to see a little bit more name recognition for that other author on the cover. But at the same time, again, that eventually will get to the point where people wouldn't recognize it because they wouldn't be able to see Ludlum's name. So it's a give and take. But
it looks like they do a whole, it's Robert Ludlum and Eric Van Lustbader.
Oh, let's think of his name. Because I was going to say it's on the tip of my tongue. But
well, there's a handful. If you look on his site, there's actually a handful of authors.
There are, there's a few of them. But yeah, Van Lustbader is one that came to mind. I've seen his quite a few times as well. So I don't know that they're going to do that. Again, the cover design is up to me, and I don't think I'm going to put A.G. Riddle's name on it. He didn't write this book, but I know that it's going to be sold and packaged as part of this other world that he did write. So I'm not terribly worried about that. If it was going to be something that I was just doing on my own, I might put his name on it and ask him permission. Since he self-published his too, so it's not like he's got a bunch of publishing guys up there, cronies, making sure he's doing what they want.
Yeah. I had, as you know, I had Sean Platt on the show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we were actually talking about open worlds. We were talking about, at one point, they opened up their whole Dream Engine world. And a bunch of guys that I'm connected to just wrote an anthology in that world. And I asked him the question, do you think that there's any marketing advantage for those guys in writing books in that world? And he didn't really think so. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. How do you feel about that? Do you think there's a marketing advantage for you to write in AG's world?
Yeah, I do, actually. I don't want to disagree with Sean. He's a smart guy, and I look up to him a lot. I'd have to listen to that. I didn't actually listen to that interview with him yet.
Hadn't gone live yet.
Okay, I was just gonna ask you. I didn't think it did, but if it did, I hadn't heard it.
As of you and I talking, and by the time anyone hears this interview, it's been up, so you can go look at it.
Okay, cool.
I'll forward you the file. Yeah,
I'm excited to hear that with him, but he's a smart guy, and if anybody knows writing and just trying out new ways of getting your work out there, it's Sean and David Wright and Johnny Truant. Those guys are good at what they do.
Yeah.
However, I do think that there's a marketing advantage to it, and it's as simple as this, Kevin. The more work you produce, the better off you're going to be, period.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter if I wrote a book in your world or I'm just keeping it all to myself or whatever. I'm producing content. And so that's the marketing advantage for me, and that's kind of the cop-out answer, and I'll get to a real one in a second. Yeah, the cop-out answer is, of course there's an advantage to it. I'm producing more work. I'm releasing another book into the world. The non-cop-out answer, the one that I've actually thought through a little bit more, is it depends on if I actually do get some backing from Amazon and some backing from A.G. Riddle.
Yeah.
Jerry is his name. So if Jerry decides to send out something to his or his massive email list of some 100,000 subscribers, you better believe someone's gonna download that book, and it's the person that wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Yeah. A little bit of muscle on your side from Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's even more. So if they decide to send out like a Black Friday, book download thing, and my book's on it, then that's a huge win.
Yeah.
I'm a little skeptical that's going to happen, but they made it sound like they wanted the book to be ready before that, so they could do some things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they're going to do something. Anything's better than nothing with this.
Right. Yeah.
And
take
anything is better than what I was going to do with it, which is just send it out to my list and hope that one of you guys read it. So
I'll read it.
So that's my answer. It's kind of twofold. I think it's there is a marketing advantage because for one, you're producing more work. I'm releasing another book. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And two, I'm hoping that there's going to be a little bit of extra benefit, extra push from these other two people I'm partnered with in it.
The other two people?
Sorry, Amazon being one person.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Jerry being the other person. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not person, but person and company that I'm partnered with.
Humans that you are in partnership with.
Yeah, maybe there aren't any humans. I think Amazon is all robots.
I do too, actually.
It's also
or sentient viruses.
Ooh, that's a book idea.
Yes. Well, mine.
Mine. It's okay. I thought of one a couple nights ago that even my wife was excited about.
Really? Oh, man. And you haven't shared it with me, which means you're not going to share it with me.
No, it is. I'm going to share it right now. I'm pulling up the Evernote file because whoever wants to write it, I'm not going to have time to write it, so somebody else can do it.
Oh, geez.
I'll get to it in a year or so.
Oh, geez.
Come
on. For everyone listening, by the way, this is
everyone
Nick,
listening,
who keeps doing this.
Free reign. Feel free to take my idea and go for it.
No, he keeps saying things like this. I'm never going to write that. I'm never going to do this. I'm too lazy.
We'll see. Maybe this book will be done and ready by the time you listen to this podcast, and you start writing it and find out it's already out.
Ooh, man.
All right, here's the idea. Here you go.
No, you don't have to share the idea.
I will. I'm excited. I want to hear what you say.
All right, okay.
It's publicly live in front of the whole world.
Okay.
On national television or whatever the hell we're doing right now. A man wakes up in a Middle Eastern village, unable to remember anything. He walks through the village. So far it's Born Identity, right? Mm-hmm. He walks through the village and people stare at him. No doubt because he's white, European or American, I haven't decided. He stumbles into a public meeting house or some other place. Again, this is all first draft. Trying to find anyone who speaks English. Everyone's still staring at him and they're freaking out and pointing at him. Eventually he does find someone and the person tells him to run away quickly, saying, "You're the president of the United States. This is not a good country for you to be in at this time." Whoa!
Nice.
Boom! Fiction bomb right there. What do you think of that?
Oh, that's pretty. That's yes. There are lots of avenues for that. I can.
There are lots of avenues.
Okay.
The only one that's worth going down is, of course, the president is also a ninja fighter.
I think. Yeah. So, The Born President is a great book.
There was never just one.
The Born President.
Or it had to be like a little bit more subtle, so people wouldn't know that it's a president. Like, how about the born commander in chief of the United States? The born
Yes.
POTUS.
Yes. The POTUS identity.
Oh,
Dude, that's
man.
awesome. I don't mean to make. That's not. I'm not making fun of the idea at all.
It's
I
after all,
think that's
it was
brilliant.
like 3 in the morning, and I had maybe a little bit of whiskey, but I woke up and it still wasn't the worst idea I'd ever heard.
If
So
you
I decided
hadn't had any whiskey, I wouldn't. There would be no credibility for that story idea at all, in my opinion. I'm
there
just
would,
saying.
yeah. No, if I hadn't had whiskey, it'd probably be like a man wakes up in a Middle Eastern village, gets shot in the head, and died.
Man wakes up,
End of book.
rolls back over, goes to sleep, dreams of book idea. The end. All right. So we've hit my 40-minute mark. So I try to keep. Unlike on our show, I try to keep things from going overboard.
Yeah,
But
I was just getting started.
no, dude, you know what? You can talk about anything you want. I always try. I do this because I want to respect the time of the person I'm talking to. So, if you want to talk about something else, I'm completely open to it. Trust me.
No, I don't have an agenda for it. I just, I'm good with whatever you want, man. You know my schedule, so.
So, I usually ask one quick follow-up question whenever I say that. Now I just blanked out on what that question was going to be. So, no, okay. So if you are, so you're doing everything right now through. You and I both work together. We do a lot of stuff through KDP, and we're exploring other avenues. Where do you see that sort of unwinding later? Like, what's the end goal for you?
The end goal for me is for my work to be available to anyone who wants it easily.
Yeah.
That's a very vague answer.
No.
Right now for me, everyone is Amazon.
Yeah.
And it certainly isn't everyone in the world. There's a ton of other places that sell books. But I find that the most benefit, the most bang for my buck, if you will, when I do a promotion or something, is to do it through Amazon with their exclusivity program, because they just have such a huge market, and I'm not a well-known author at this point.
Yeah.
So I think, though, and I've actually taken the depths off, of KDP Select for the time being. I haven't uploaded it yet I'm going to probably go through Smashwords for a few of them, and then because it's just the easiest, and I only have to do it once. But I haven't done it because that's a day of work that I won't be able to write or get as much done that day. And I need to focus on finalizing these last threads of Lucid and some of the other projects that I've got. So I won't be doing it yet, but I'm hoping that by Christmas time this year, 2014, that my at least one of my novels will be available wherever books are sold, as they say.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, the end goal for me is just to make my book available to anyone who wants it at a reasonable price, and at a reasonably easy way of getting it. And I don't think Amazon is going to be the end goal for every author out there. I think most likely there is going to be a company that comes up that maybe it already exists, maybe it's Smashwords, maybe it's something different, that gives Amazon a run for their money.
Yeah.
I really do believe in free market economy, capitalism, that kind of stuff, and I think that we're going to see some good competition from someone other than Amazon in the book world, and very soon. And I'm hoping, actually, believe it or not, that it's one of the big 4 or however many publishing companies there are now. I hope it's one of them, because I think that they're due for some really some wising up, if you will.
Oh yeah.
I think they're overdue for that. I think they really need to figure out that they're not in the business of selling books; they're in the business of selling dead trees.
Right.
And if they snap out of that, then they can be back in the business of selling books, and they can make more money than they ever have before.
Well, and I like Seth Godin's idea of it. They're selling souvenirs now. Like the books are a book has become something well beyond what we always thought it was. Right? It's the
right.
So we're at a level of technology now where we deal with books as a sort of metaphorical object rather than a physical object. So
True.
Yeah. So I see where you're coming from. I think I agree with you, by the way. I'd like to see
Yeah.
one of the big 4 take that on, and whoever does it first is going to just have a huge advantage. It may become the big one before you can blink.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. But again, I'm not worried about an antitrust lawsuit like we had earlier. I'm not worried about this monopolization of it. It's an oligopoly, whatever it's called at this point, I think. But I'm not worried about that because there's still Amazon, the giant 800 million pound gorilla in the room. And if we get the big one, and they all four combine into one massive publishing company, and again, this is the but, or the and, if you will, and they decide what business they're in, and they finally realize and wake up to the fact that we're not going back to the good old days where they got to pay us 15% royalties to sell,
that
$37 or whatever. We're not going to do that. We're not going back to that. We will still have books in the form of souvenirs, as you said, but then and only then can we see some true competition that's going to benefit everyone. It may take a while. It's going to be some pain and some growing pain for everyone involved, but Amazon's not going to back down from their platform of trying to make everything available to everyone in 2 days or even less, with this 30-minute crap they're talking about. So anyway, that's kind of where I stand on it. I've always been that kind of a capitalistic driven, I like that sort of competition. It scares me like it probably should any author about what that's gonna mean for us. But if there's anything we've learned, Kevin, man, we've watched this world explode and basically be created overnight, it seems like. And through it all, one thing stops working, but then something else pops up that works just as well or even better. And so that's helping my fear right now.
I think one thing that's happened is that the genie's out of the bottle, as it were. I mean, you're not going to be able to go back to the days when the idea that being self-published was something you should be ashamed of. For example, like you weren't good enough to get a real contract or whatever. I don't think that's ever going to happen now, because the platform, whether or not Amazon continues to exist, and I feel strongly that we'll have Amazon or something like it for centuries, frankly. I mean, for at least 100 years. But whether or not that continues as it is now, the technology to generate these books is there now for anyone to use. I open up Scrivener, I can output an ebook in any format I want in a few minutes, and there's no reason for me to rely on anyone else.
Right.
The thing that's being controlled is distribution and exposure. So it's going to be interesting. So it's exciting to be a part of that. I'm glad I got somebody like you. We can bounce ideas around and figure out new ways to use the new stuff that comes out.
Yeah, I'll finish with this with that thought, man. I'm not risk averse, and that's probably what's led me to even find the smallest amount of success. Because I don't. That I always say this, and I believe it's true. You don't think it is, so thank you. But I don't feel like I'm a very great writer. I feel like I'm getting better every book I release, every time I write. But there are so many writers out there who are far better than I am that you will never hear of. Because I'm not afraid to put myself out there and fail. I'm not afraid to try different things and take risks. I'm not afraid to jump out of the boat and hope that I can, float. I don't know if that's an actual analogy. If I just said random ones.
No, you just invented one. That's cool.
I was going to go with like a Jesus thing and like walk on water, but then I was like, well, I don't want to. Really, I'm not going to be that guy. It's like, I don't know if I could just jump out of the boat and walk on water, but it turns out I'm Christ.
Headline, Nick Thacker, Christ.
Yes, let's not publish, that as a headline, because that's some pain and heartache for me down the road, as well as it will for Jesus, I'm sure, down the road. But
Jesus wept. And
right. He's like, man, my book's the best-selling book in the entire world. Look at this guy's book.
Eat it, suckers. Self-published, yo.
Self-published. That's right.
So I don't know why Jesus is so street in my head, but he is.
He's got to be. That's the Jesus I like too.
All right. Well, okay. So we've been chatting with Nick Thacker, and if you want to learn more about Nick, you should go to his website at nickthacker.com, where you can see pretty pictures of him and his book covers. These are great covers, by the way.
Thanks, man. I did not design them.
You did not design them. I know. I'm sorry. I was going to imply that you had and just let everybody
I know, but no. I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag right now. Actually, I did the Enigma strain. I designed myself, 100%. But of course, it doesn't really count because it's just a picture of a virus symbol and then purple. But,
it's got the flag on. It's very patriotic. It's very.
Oh, did I set that one up? Okay, that's not the actual cover. Yeah, my bad. I designed that one as well. And that was obviously there's more to it than that, and it's a cool cover. But I have a different one. It's just purple, kind of a grungy purple background, and then a distressed-looking virus symbol on
So
the front.
this
So
is the alternate Veterans Day version.
that's right. It's up for one day only. Veterans Day book.
Which,
Back-
for everyone listening, this is like well after Veterans Day, but
Right. Well, it
surprise,
was up
suckers.
well before Veterans Day as well. So the joke's on me.
So, you can also learn about Nick on his site, Write Hacked, where he is helping you write, publish, and sell your books if you happen to be an author. Definitely check him out, and you should sign up for his coaching at least, because I know I can attest it's pretty good.
Oh,
Pretty good.
thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Best $200 ever spent.
There you go. Well, you
Best
heard it from Kevin himself.
$1,000. Yeah, best
$200. We'll talk for over an hour, and we'll figure out what's going on. You guys got a problem? If you have, here's again, and I'm not trying to pitch my coaching services, but I am trying to say this is why I started doing the coaching. It's not about figuring out what you need to do. A lot of times, authors come to me. You came to me knowing that there was a lot of stuff out there that you could do, and you'd heard of it all. I wasn't going to teach you any new information. What I think is helpful for us as authors is to just find that thing that we need to do and do that and nothing else and focus on it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm hoping to provide with some of the coaching stuff is I'm just going to help you focus. Maybe it's a kick in the butt that you need. Maybe it's some compassion and some help with some of it. But what I hope to do with all these sessions is to tell people, look, you've heard of guest posting, you've heard of all this stuff. Why don't we focus on this thing or whatever it is that I think makes most sense and go with that until it fails or until it succeeds.
Yeah. Cool. You should check him out. Go to writehack.com.
That's right, Hack. WRTRIT.
I'm going to put the link. I'll put the links in the
I
show
figured you
notes.
would, but I'm always excited to say
Thanks
it.
for spelling.
Well, I didn't. I was like WRTEHK
HAK.
dot
Duh.
biz.
Go check Nick out at writehack.com, which I will include links in the show notes. You can also check him out at nickthacker.com. And you should tune in every Friday to hear me and Nick talk about the same sort of stuff we're talking about here right now, actually, on the Self-Publishing Answers podcast, where we're getting better. We're getting better at that. We're going to get better.
Yeah, we're going to get better. Kevin, thank you, and thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming along, man. It's been great talking to you, and as always, and we'll, you and I end up chatting a million times more, but not everyone gets to hear those, so not yet, not until I release the tapes. So take care, everybody. We will talk to you next week. Tune into my show. Be sure to subscribe, hit those stars on iTunes for both my show and Self-Publishing Answers podcast. Show some love and take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time. Well, that was Nick Thacker and me. We were both there, I swear. Not in the same room, of course, because Nick actually lives in Colorado while I live in the Houston area, and the commute's killing us. No, actually, it's pretty interesting because that's what collaboration is these days, is being able to work from a great distance with each other, and so we've got a nice little system going. You heard some of the story there. There are challenges. There will be more challenges, and we're learning as we go. So, but it's been a lot of fun. So, if you're out there thinking about a collaboration with someone else, I highly recommend it. I really do. It changed a lot about how I approach this work. And it gave me some courage to try some new things, including this podcast. That it was during the collaboration with Nick that I decided that I've got the equipment, I've got the background, I've got pretty much everything I need. What's keeping me from doing this? And that was a huge step forward for me. I've loved talking to you guys because it's been a lot of fun to produce this. It's been even more fun talking to the guests. The people that I bring on the show are, they're amazing. So it's been great all around. So thank you for being a part of that, and thanks for coming back every week. Because without you, what's the point? I'm just a guy in a closet talking to himself. So, and on that note, I'm going to wrap up the show now. And if you have questions for me or for Nick or any of my guests, feel free to ask them. Come to kevintumlinson.com/podcast, where you can leave a voicemail, leave me an email, comment about all my swallowing and my uhs and ums. Feel free to criticize all you want. I'm fine with it. But I would love to talk to you about anything, self-publishing included. I don't know if you realize this, but I offer some author coaching. So does Nick. And we've got other resources that are geared towards the self-published author. But if you just want to talk and chat and hang out, man, I'm cool with that too. So check me out, kevintompson.com/podcast, where you can leave voicemails and emails and any other type of communication you like. Plus, follow me on all the various social media outlets. If you search for Kevin Tomlinson just about anywhere, you're going to find me. It's no problem. I'm real easy, like Sunday morning. So take care of yourselves. I'm so glad you're here. Be sure to sign up, by the way, on kevintomlinson.com. You can get updates on this podcast, plus whatever else I'm working on. And also, I'd be in your debt. I'd love to talk to you. And if you're looking for something to read, I just happen to produce those things. I call them books. I think it's going to catch on. Nick also calls them books. So go on Amazon.com if you like and search for either of our names, Kevin Tomlinson or Nick Thacker. But if you can go to my website, you'll see a little button called Books, and it's got a whole list of everything I've got out currently. So speculative fiction, that's what I'm into. So sci-fi, fantasy, and speculative means I write about whatever I want. So go check that out. And I'd love to hear from you if you read something you like it. So thanks again. Take care, everybody. See you next week. And if you are listening to this over the holidays, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you, and Happy New Year. And have a safe and happy one. Be with your family. All my love to you. Take care.
Word Slinger.